Hello there friends, and welcome to my first Gravity Rush 2 story related video. So Gravity Rush 2 was released on the 17th of January or the 20th if you're a poor sap who gets everything late over here in the UK like me, and I honestly loved the game to bits. The first and second games have been two of the best games I've played in recent memory, partly because of their uniqueness, but the gameplay is great and the story fascinated me as well. Unfortunately, I think the game is a little bit underrepresented on YouTube, so it is my intention to create a few videos taking a look at key characters or elements of the story and how I interpreted them. Since this is a Japanese video game, despite the story being great, it is of course a little bit convoluted. So again, whilst a lot of what I bring forward in the video will be information given directly, I'll also be filling in some holes with assumptions as well, so take it all with a pinch of salt. Also, the video will be rife with spoilers. I am not going to be holding back whatsoever from both games, so ye be warned. Anyway, this first video I thought we'd start with one of the more depressing parts of the game, Dr. Brahman, Kali Angel and Durga Angel. First off, I'll give a summary of their story in the game, and then we'll take a little bit of a closer look at the characters. So the foundation of Brahman's story was established in Gravity Rush Overture, which is the 20-minute or so anime which you can find on YouTube. It begins with two young girls, Durga and Kali, speaking to one another about being hungry. Then we see a wall full of presumably missing children posters, and from the way it was framed, I think we can assume that these girls are also orphans. Before long, we see an ominous figure approach the girls before kidnapping them. When we see them next, they have been separated and put into some sort of pods in New Hiraleon, and again, you're going to have to forgive my pronunciations. And that is the government structure floating above Hexaville. A strange robot tells the girls that they have nothing to fear and refers to them as angels. This same shot pans out and it shows a large number of dead police officers. In the final section of Gravity Rush Overture, Kat, Raven and Sid make their way to New Hiraleon after an announcement of strange gravitational activity. Upon arrival, Kat and Raven are met by the strange robot, who claims that it had been expecting the shifters. They're then joined by two mysterious characters who appear to be half human and half machine. It's clear to Raven that it was the gravity engine for New Hiraleon that was causing the gravity storm, and it was these androids that messed it up. They begin to fight with Kat and Raven. They're unusually agile, proficient in hand-to-hand combat, and are capable of regenerating themselves after being injured, and most curiously of all, seem to have the power to crystallize things. After a hard-fought battle, the assailants simply self-destruct, sending Kat, Sid and Raven, along with all the pods with orphans in it, into the gravity storm, with a voice telling the angels to find the genome so that they could be complete. So this takes us to the start of Gravity Rush 2. Once Kat and Sid land on the other side of the storm, they are found by a timid young girl named Ceci, who is part of a place called the Banga Settlement. We learned that she had landed in the settlement in recent times with no recollection of who she was, and was adopted by their leader Lisa. Ceci becomes good friends of Kat and Sid, but nothing of particular note happens to her until the end of the Durga Para Lao city arc. Here, New Hiraleon makes a reappearance, only this time the structure has become animated after Nevi have attached themselves to sections of it. It also seems to have grown considerably and seems hell-bent on consuming Lai Havina, which is the rich person part of Durga Para Lao. A portion of Lai Havina is consumed, a portion that Ceci happens to be on. Kat and Raven go inside of New Hiraleon to rescue her and find her being held captive by the gravity engine which was causing the gravitational disturbance earlier. So I don't think the city actually came to life or anything. I think the gravity engine was pulling all the bits of it together and forming like a body, and then obviously the Nevi were drawn to that gravitational disturbance. So Kat and Raven managed to free her, but this sort of dark energy hung about in its place and it knocked Ceci and Raven into a rift. Kat follows, but she is separated, and when she regains consciousness, she finds herself back in Hexaville, except 3 years had passed since the last time she was there. In place of the Gravity Queen, the city is now protected by strange round robots known as the Grego, but also another superhero type character known as Kali Angel. New laws mean that Kat can no longer stay at her house and is forced to seek shelter in the dilapidated Endestria. During her search, she stumbles across a man whose vehicle has crashed, who says that he was heading to Plejun to participate in activities that he and his daughter used to. Kat assumes his daughter is dead or gone somehow, and so takes him to Plejun. There are a lot of police around, and it becomes clear quite quickly that they are looking for the man, but he assures Kat it's not because he is a criminal. We learn that this man is a Dr. Brahman, and then he tells us a great deal about himself. We discover that his daughter is not dead, but rather suffers from a terrible disease that leaves her unable to move. He tells Kat that his daughter was the only family he had after his wife and parents had already passed away, and he shows a sort of enviousness at Kat's ability to move so freely when his daughter cannot at all. He also seems interested in Kat. He asks a lot of questions about what is most important to her, about the flow of time and other vague nonsense like that. And finally we learn that he is the genius behind the Grego robot defense system. After they have parted and Kat goes back to Industria, a Grego approaches her and lets her know that her citizenship registration has gone through, and also that her old home is once again habitable, courtesy of Dr. Brahman, so we know that he is someone of sort of political influence. Shortly after, Kat comes across Sid's old partner Chaz, who tells her that Brahman is the new mayor of Hexaville, but there are a group of rebels who aim to kill him during his inauguration ceremony, and that they aren't pulling any punches. They try to tamper with the Gregos to have them self-destruct, they fire missiles, they send in soldiers, all in an attempt to kill Brahman. But the killer combo of Hexaville's protectors Kali and Kat manage to fight them off, and Brahman officially becomes the mayor of Hexaville. Brahman's assistant Adika later calls Kat aside to ask for her help. During the commotion, the rebels had stolen a case with something important in it. Kat tracks the rebels and manages to find it, but Kali swoops in at the last second to retrieve it. She picks up a crystal from the ground and lets Kat know that Dad will get it back. After Kali leaves, Unica and Permit appear to duke it out with Kat. After their encounter, Unica tells Kat that Brahman is a dangerous man, but before she can explain, Kali reappears and her and Permit fly off. Kali takes Kat back to Brahman, who says he needs another angel, and he gives a little explanation of his predicament. When he discovered his daughter's illness, he sought to stop the disease from developing any further, but in doing so, only managed to encapsulate her in time entirely. As it stands, he would be long dead before even a second passes for her. His plan now is to encapsulate everything and everyone in the same way, so that they may be together. To do this, he needs Kat, like Kali, to become an angel. She obviously rejects the idea, but before leaving and to further cement, hey, this is the bad guy, don't feel bad for him, she finds Adika, who Brahman says is frozen in time, but for all intents and purposes, he's dead. Maybe he was speaking metaphorically about death when he said frozen in time, it's not really important. Kat flees, but soon learns that Brahman has ordered a manhunt for her. With police on the lookout for her everywhere, she goes to meet with Aki, the fortune teller in Plejun. Whilst Aki is nowhere to be seen, a nearby Grego that has obviously been hacked helps Kat to evade the police. Unfortunately, before she can make a proper escape, she's caught by Kali, who claims that Brahman had rescued her and her sister from the streets. But since she's gone, Kat will have to do as a second angel and attempts to arrest her and take her back to Brahman. As she does so, Chaz appears with a tape showing footage recorded by a broken Grego, footage of Brahman killing/freezing Adika, and he plays it on all the monitors across Hexaville for everyone to see the real mayor. The Grego turn on Kali, and Kat struggles against her for some time. Things aren't looking too great, but suddenly the rift from back in Durga Parallel opens up, and Raven and Ceci burst through, and together they manage to defeat Kali. She escapes back to Brahman and they flee on their ship. We then see Kali and Brahman together, with Kali sobbing like a child, but Brahman telling her not to worry because Durga had returned, closing in on footage of Ceci. Soon after, Kat speaks to Chaz, who reveals that Brahman was behind both the missing orphans case and the gravity engine conundrum, but their conversation is cut short when a swarm of Grego shoots past them. Grego from all over the city converge on the police station where Ceci and Raven are currently at. Once the Gregos have caused a ton of trouble, killing plenty of police officers, Kali shows up once again to collect Ceci. Hearing her voice stirs something in Ceci, who, confused, runs away from everyone, with Kali, Kat and Raven all chasing after her. Upon reaching her, they continue smacking each other about a bit, but when Kali is near defeat, she cries out for Durga to remember, and then she does. And upon the sisters touching one another's hands, Ceci transforms into Durga Angel, who has the ability to fly and to create almost anything from crystal. Together they are far too strong for our gravity shifters, but before they can deliver the killing blow to Kat and Raven, Unica and Permit swoop in to carry them off to safety. With the two angels reunited, Brahman's plan to crystallize everything can begin, and they get started with the process. We also get a glimpse of Brahman's actual daughter, who is frozen in time beside him. Kat, Raven, Unica and Permit all go to stop this, and after interrupting and destroying the shield protecting the sisters, Unica and Permit attempt to kill them both, but Raven and Kat try to stop them from harming Durga in the hopes that they can bring Ceci back. As the two pairs turn on each other, Durga simply swats away Unica and Permit, leaving Kat and Raven on their own, and allowing the process to begin again. Fortunately, Lisa shows up on an airship at this point, and as her adoptive mother, she attempts to turn Durga back to Ceci, and it begins to work until Kali opens her big mouth again about being her sister. Conflicted, Durga continues to help Kali, so Kat and Raven attempt to shut Kali up for good. As they attempt to finish her, Durga body blocks the gravity shifters, with her taking the damage instead, which leads to her plummeting to the ground from a considerable height. Seeing this, Kali mutates massively, morphing into a mess of body parts, but primarily a giant arm so that she could catch Durga's fall. This mutated Kali also grabs Brahma's airship out of the air and tosses it to the ground in the process. Through the combined efforts of Kat, Raven, Unica and Permit, they manage to eventually defeat Kali for good, and she goes pop, showering the ground below with crystals. Ceci is fortunately sort of unharmed, and Brahman is found impaled nearby after his ship was slammed into the ground by Kali. Ceci appears next during Kat's final battle against Kai's mutated guardian. She manages to transform into an angel while maintaining her memories and loyalties as Ceci, and manages to encapsulate the destructive force in crystal, allowing Kat to land a finishing blow. Unfortunately, the destructive force is still going after this, and Ceci sacrifices herself in an attempt to allow Kat to escape. And then finally we see Ceci during the pre-credits scene as Raven, and learn that she has all but taken over the Bengal settlement now that Lisa is basically running both Jurga Paralao and Hexaville as well. So that was an outline of the stories of the three characters. Hopefully you're not too bored already, because we're going to be taking a look a little bit more in depth now. And first off, we're going to be diving into the real world influences of the characters. Right, so all of them have their origins in Hinduism, and I'm not that well versed in the religion, so if there are any Hindus listening, I do apologise if I get this completely wrong, and I also appreciate that there are several versions of the stories in Hinduism, but I'm going to be working off just one from a night of Googling. So Brahman is essentially the overarching god of the Hindu faith, who has three forms: Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. These three gods created the goddess Durga in order to defeat the demon Mahishasura. During her battle with the demon, Durga becomes infuriated, and the avatar Kali bursts forth from her to defeat the demon. However, Kali is left unsatisfied, and in her bloodlust, goes on a rampage, killing both demons and humans who may have been at fault of some sort of crime. Eventually Shiva calms her down by laying beneath her. So in Hinduism, Durga and by extension Kali are creations of Brahman to defeat the demons. In Gravity Rush, Brahman creates Durga and Kali to defeat time itself. So that's Durga on the left and Kali on the right, and you can see the obvious similarities being almost one and the same. They both have several arms and hold the same weapons and artifacts as one another, setting the basis for a parallel so we can focus specifically on what's different. Now, Durga is beautiful and gives off a radiant vibe, and in Gravity Rush, Durga is certainly the more angelic of the two. She's also dressed far more conservatively, her weapons are clean and appear unused, and she came first chronologically, making her the older of the two. Kali on the other hand is manic looking, and pretty much naked, eh? She has an obvious air of death around her, made stronger by the numerous heads and arms she wears around her body, and the blade she holds is coated in blood. We know that Kali in Gravity Rush is also manic, and the ship Brahman puts her through makes her and Death frequent companions. So again, Durga's weapon is clean. We never actually see or even hear of her killing anyone, despite her attempts to kill Cat and Raven and freeze time itself of course, but she never actually achieves it. The blood hasn't been spilt yet basically. Kali on the other hand, we know is complicit in the murder of Attica, was tasked with cleaning him up, and was there when the Grigos were rampaging against the policemen and killed several rebels as well. She has spilt blood, and probably a lot of it as well. And obviously while she's not naked, she is far closer to being naked than Durga is. Now I think it's important to point out that in Hinduism, Kali is never actually portrayed as evil. She's a killer and a destroyer, yes, but a killer and destroyer of things that are evil, in many ways making her a protector. This is the case in Gravity Rush as well. Kali is Hexavil's protector, and despite it being through Brahman's twisted lens, she is actually fighting against evil as well. Finally, and this is a little bit tinfoily, but after she mutates, much like Durga did in her battle with the demon in Hinduism, she's a collection of heads and limbs, not at all unlike how Kali is depicted originally. So there's some strong influences there, and I'm sure someone with a deeper understanding of the faith would see and draw out a lot more, but dwelling on it more for me would probably just bring up more bullshit, so let's move on to Gravity Rush specifically. Now, to me, Brahman is a small step away from your sort of sympathetic antagonist, but he still makes a great villain. In short, his motivations are understandable, but his reaction to his situation is frankly insane. Everything Brahman does stems from his desire to be reunited with his daughter. Even when Kat first meets him, and before we know he's a bad guy, we learn this about him, and he was being 100% genuine about it. When his daughter initially becomes sick with her debilitating illness, in his attempts to cure her, he accidentally freezes her in time. His response is to simply do the same to everyone else, so that his daughter is technically no longer trapped alone in time, but moving at the same pace as everything else. Now we know the man is a genius of sorts. He created the Grigos, as well as the robots from the Overture anime, but he also created the two android type things from that as well, and also Kali and Durga Angel. I don't believe they were born with any special powers, but rather with a susceptibility to his experiments. Now, to perfect his angels to Kali and Durga level, he needed to get test subjects, and to keep it on the sly, he used those forgotten by society, and began to kidnap orphans to experiment on. Perhaps most horrifyingly of all, we learned post-game that all of the other children were found dead on his ship, showing to us even more that Brahman is a true monster. We can also assume that the sisters were special because Brahman's experiments, for whatever reason, actually worked, and they received two different powers. Kali could regenerate, giving her inhuman strength and the ability to expand the crystal field that Durga creates to encapsulate everything. And then obviously Durga can create and control these crystals. Brahman needs both of these roles to be filled for his plan to work, and so Brahman initially intended Kat to fill the role of Durga before Durga returned, hence him essentially grooming Kat and then propositioning her to become an angel. But Brahman is a serial user, and Kat brings this up when Kali confronts her for the first time. As soon as Kat isn't on board with him, he attempts to have her forced to his side, and after Durga returns, he couldn't really give a shit about getting Kat on side. But this extends to the angels as well. Both Kali and Durga refer to him as Dad, but he never treats them as his children. He has a daughter already, and he calls his experiments angels. So while it sounds kind of endearing, it's meant in a way that they are his daughter's guardian angels, as opposed to an adult saying, "Oh, my little angel," about their own children. In the end, he couldn't care less about Kali or Durga beyond what they can provide for him. They are simply tools to reach his goal of being reunited with his daughter. And this segues nicely onto Kali, who, the more I think about it, is the real victim of this arc. At first I found her incredibly irritating, but now after taking a step back and looking at it, I feel a strong sense of pity. Kali is driven by her desperate yearning to be part of something, specifically a part of her family. Obviously, being an orphan, she had no parents, only Durga. When Brahman kidnapped the two of them, they both developed something similar to Stockholm Syndrome, where they sympathised and actually wanted to help their kidnapper and captor achieve his goals. And because of this, we see them refer to Brahman as Dad quite frequently, but like I said, this is never reciprocated. They're merely Brahman's blood daughters, guardian angels. Fortunately for Durga, she was able to escape the situation after New Hiralion, and as Ceci was given a mother in Lisa, as well as a family in the rest of the Banga settlement. But poor Kali was not. Not only has she lost her parents and her sister, but she was left alone with the man who experimented on her and abused her, who was willing to put her life on the line to save someone else's, and that was all that she had. When you look at her language and actions as well, she is incredibly childish, probably because she never really had an actual parent to raise her properly, or wasn't given a proper chance at childhood. She initially teases Kat in a sort of ner-nicky-ner-ner way during their first encounters, and when they begin to butt heads, she becomes easily enraged. Say if Kat flies up too high, she gets angry, and later when Kat questions why she's setting the Grigos on everyone, she doesn't know what to say, then explodes with anger, resulting to a "I hate you!" bearing in mind that Kat hasn't really done much of anything other than defend herself. It's a depressing look at Kali's mental state. When things don't go her way, when the Raven Cat duo managed to defeat her the first time around, she goes back to Daddy, crying, basically begging for forgiveness, which either amplifies her childish personality or the cruelty she would expect from Brahman for failing him. And we see this cruelty transferred from both the angels onto Kat and Raven. When Durga returns to being an angel and gives Kali a blade on her arm, she does so with glee. Kali smiles as she slashes at the gravity shifters, and just as it seems her deaths were approaching, Durga laughs alongside her sister. Again, I can't tell if they're both so immature that they're treating it as a game, or if they're so disconnected from suffering after experiencing so much of it at the hands of their kidnapper. That said, I think there's a shred of logic behind Kali's desire to help Brahman with his plan, even if it essentially means sacrificing everyone else. In the same way that Brahman wishes to be with his daughter again, Kali wishes to be with Durga. Freezing everything means that she will never lose Durga again, and during the mission where Kat and the gang are destroying the Bubs and the Crystal Field, I thought there was a real sense of sadness rather than this sort of epic, fake final battle. And I think it's because you're literally tearing apart the two sisters yet again. This is reinforced in her final moments when Kali rescues Durga at the expense of her own body. More than anything, Kali just wanted to be with her sister. Now, on forums and around the interwebs, I've seen people wondering why Kali turned into that huge mutation that she did, and it's pretty simple, I think at least. Her power was to regenerate, which was why she was kind of difficult to defeat and why she was crazy strong physically. But when Durga was falling to her death, Kali went to regenerate enough of her body to catch her fall, and this spiraled out of control after she'd saved her sister, and she just kept going on and on regenerating. You'll notice that all the faces that appear on the blob are her face, or are becoming her face. As for Durga, we don't really know that much about her because she technically hasn't even existed since she was a child, and has been living as Ceci for the past few years. And even the scenes we do see her in, she barely says anything at all, since they're all done during conflicts with Kat. So I'm going to leave the inspection of Ceci to a different video covering her and Lisa, since I think there's a lot more to cover on that. Now, there are some things that I'm still a little bit at a loss about regarding this, so I wanted to sort of mention them to see what you guys think. First off, I don't know what the genome really is. Now, I'm assuming that it's what allows Brahman to take a human and create an angel. At first I thought it was what allowed the shifters to do their thing, and that in Overture, Brahman was baiting them there so that he could capture them. And with Brahman's attempts to groom a cat, I think it's safe to assume that Kat is in possession of the genome as well. And then we learn later that the Guardians and thus the ability to shift appear to the royalty of Eto, not because of some special genes. It's safe to assume that Durga and Kali, being blood related, and for whatever reason have this gene. But why then did Brahman's robot in Overture tell the children to go and find the genome to be complete, if Durga already had it to begin with? Next up, on New Hiraleon, was Kali in the pod there and torn away as well? I say this because A, we see her in a pod, though it doesn't specifically say hers is in New Hiraleon, and B, she's aged significantly since then, way more than the 3 years that have passed in Hexaville, I'd say. We only see her face in Overture, but just comparing the two, Kali originally looks to be in her early teens, maybe 11, 12 or 13, and I'd say she's at least very late teens, like 18, 19, but more likely early 20s in Gravity Rush 2. And we know that at different heights on the world pillar, time flows at different speeds, so Kali would have had to go on higher than Hexaville to age more and more, then come back down. And the only place we know of higher than Hexaville is Eto, which I doubt she went to. So was she just thrown up high into the air and came crashing back down in Hexaville with some time having passed? Or maybe in the same way that Ceci physically transforms a little, what we see of Kali is a permanently transformed version, and she's actually younger than she appears. What do you guys think? And how old do you think Ceci is as well? And finally, how long do you think she was at the Bangor settlement before Kat and Sid landed there? Finally, in my search to sort of round out my understanding of them, I stumbled across the wiki page, which pretty much interpreted everything in an entirely different way to me. So according to the wiki at the moment at least, Brahman is Durga and Kali's father, and it's actually Durga who was frozen in time, and she is the daughter that Brahman is trying to save. Sessi isn't literally Durga, but rather Durga is able to manifest herself through Sessi. Now I have no idea where this has come from. If it's an official source then okay, I've read the story a bit wrong, but if it's not then it's even more tinfoily than I can handle. So under the article for Brahman it says that he took Kali and Durga in and subjected them to horrific experiments. But we know he was performing the experiments to save his daughter. We also know he kidnapped a lot, and I mean a lot of orphans, and ended up killing the vast majority of them as well. Why would he give a shit about Durga specifically if she's just an orphan as well? Also, we see Brahman's daughter during the comic panels, and she doesn't resemble Durga Angel whatsoever. So maybe it's just whoever's contributing to the wiki is planning to sort of expand it a little bit and explain, but from what I can tell it's just wrong. Happy to be proven otherwise though. And there we have it, a look at the story of Dr. Brahman, Kali Angel and Durga Angel in Gravity Rush 2. I hope you found the video a little bit interesting. I will be producing more of these in the future. If you did like it, you can let me know via a like, comment or subscribe. As always guys, thank you for watching, and I shall see you in the next one.